There are a lot of virtual tabletops out there, and seeing as this is a channel for the Fantasy Flight game Star Wars and sometimes some Genesys stuff, I wanted to give you guys a walkthrough for RPG Sessions, one of the most prominent for the narrative dice systems. RPG Sessions is a free-to-use virtual tabletop, and one thing that sets this one apart from any of the others is that this one was made specifically and only for the Star Wars and Genesys narrative dice systems. So without further ado, let's go over to RPGSessions.com, and I'm going to show you everything that you need to know. Okay, so when you go to RPGSessions.com, you will reach this landing page. You will need to create an account and then sign in. When you first log into RPG Sessions, you will be greeted with your home page. This page, if you've played any other games before, will show you any recent character or vehicle sheets that you've had, or any recent games that you've played in, as well as a couple of statistics and recent rolls. I'm gonna have timestamps down below for any chapters and stuff, but first, let's start with the library tab. This will be the tab where you'll want to go if you create any PCs, NPCs, or vehicles, as well as you can import characters directly from Ogdude, Hyperdrive Generator, Genesys Emporium, the Stugoff website for Star Wars RPG, or Genesys Ref. First, let me show you how to create a character. So when you go to the library tab, you'll have this create new button here in the top corner. And here you can see that you can create a folder, a vehicle, or a character. We're gonna create a character. And then here you'll name your character. You'll select the player type, whether you want player character, a minion adversary, rival adversary, or nemesis. And then you'll select the game theme. So we can select either Genesys, one of the Genesys themes, or one of the Star Wars themes. Pretty much the only thing this does is this changes the look of the character sheet with the theming. So let's just select Force and Destiny. Okay, because we're in Force and Destiny, we're gonna select the Star Wars dice. We're also, because we're playing in Star Wars, we'll want to enable the Force die, and if we're playing a Force user, you will enable Force rating. The character sheet will have various automations and stuff for your soak when you add armor and whatnot. So we like to leave that check mark on. And then if you want the Genesys style of motivations with your desire for your strength and flaw, you can choose to enable that or not. And then down below we have some extra mechanics from various Genesys games or Star Wars games. So we're playing in Force and Destiny, so we're playing with morality. However, I'm going to enable obligation and duty just so I can show you guys how it works. And from there we will create character. So as you can see, then you're brought to the character page. We can click this pencil right here to edit some details. So you can change the name, you can change the image. So this is the first time I'm mentioning it. However, RPG Sessions does have Patreon support with a couple of extra key features that just help them maintain the cost for some of these additional features that cost money to implement. One of those being storage for images. So if you are a Patreon supporter, you can upload your own images to your character sheets. Otherwise, you're just able to use URL, which works perfectly fine. If you go to Google Images and you just look for whatever kind of character sheet you want, you can literally just right click and then go to copy image address. You'll copy that. And then that's the link that you'll just paste right to here. Now, sometimes it'll have like / gobbledygook at the end of it. What you can do is either click fix link, or if that doesn't work, you want to find where it says .jpeg or .png and just delete everything after that point. And once you get down to the .jpeg, that should fix it. There we go. And you can choose to either use the full image or this like zoomed in focused version of the image. And then we'll touch on this add qualities thing later, but there's some really cool functionality and features that come from that. For now, we're just gonna hit save. And from here, you can adjust the default soak value. So 2 based on brawn. You don't want to put your armor amount in this number when you manually type, especially if you have automation enabled. You'll want to just set it to whatever your brawn is. Your threshold, again, set that to whatever it is at the start. I guess in this case it would be 12 and 12, I believe. If you have any defenses, you can put those in, though I recommend leaving them at 0, again, because the automations will add any if you get any naturally from like talents or gear. And then force rating. We're gonna put 1 force rating here. And then from here, you can click into this and adjust any of these stats that you want to, and you can see that that'll automatically change the amount of dice that you're rolling for your skills. So let's see, for skills, we're gonna click the pencil, and this checkbox over here is for if it's a career skill. I don't remember what the warrior aggressor ones are, so I'm just gonna click some random ones. Okay, and then if you save, you can see that you can now see which ones are career skills for when you go to upgrade. And then for different ranks, you can come here and select what you want for those. And as you can see, it'll also update the dice rolls as well right here for you. Let's say you get a talent that lets you change your lightsaber to agility. You can do is you can come over to lightsaber. You can click on the pencil next to the talent, and you can choose to change the linked characteristic from brawn to any other characteristic if you have a talent or something that lets you do that. You can even make it so that way every time you roll lightsaber, you add an additional green die or an additional blue die. If for whatever reason you get a gear or a talent or something homebrew that you want to add in. Okay, we're just gonna click save, and we're gonna move on. We're gonna skip weapons just for a brief moment, and let's look at our XP. So let's go ahead and add XP. So what we can do is we can say like 100, and I think a 10 XP is human, right? So 110, and you can call that like starting XP, add XP. You can also add your starting credits. Let's just say we start with 2,000 credits. The GM was very generous. Encumbrance is going to be 5 plus your brawn. So that's 9. Okay, so if we go up here, we can look at, okay, we had 4 brawn, 3 agility, 3 presence. I don't think we could have actually afforded that, so let's put that down to 2. We can see, again, it updates down here. So we have that 70 and then 100. So we're going to say 100 for starting characteristics. I can't spell. Okay. And now we can see that it automatically deducts it from our XP. And if we scroll down to the bottom, we now have an XP history. So you can see everything that you've added and subtracted as you've played your campaign. So next, let's go over to weapons. And they added a new update recently that lets you just add from a database, which is very nice. So let's say that we want to add a vibro sword. You just type it in, enter, and we're going to do a regular vibro sword. And we can click this buy button. We can see the amount of credits we want, or we can customize the amount of credits it costs, depending on if you make a deal with a GM, or negotiate something at an NPC store. And now you can see it automatically deducts it from your credits, and it adds it to your character sheet, complete with all of the different qualities. If you want to change anything, you can click the 3 dots, click edit, and here you can come in and you can add anything that you want and change anything that you want. Very nifty and helpful. You can also choose to just add a blank weapon and type everything in yourself if you so desire. And then here you can delete. Okay, next we have a critical injury table. If you get any critical injuries, this is where they will show up. And I'll show you something else again with this when we get to the game table. Next, let's add talent group. So we're in Star Wars, we're the warrior aggressor, right? So now instead of having to type all these in manually, what we can do is create the aggressor. That's going to be right here. Add. It might take a minute. You might have to refresh the page after adding it. However, after just a brief moment, you should see now you have your warrior aggressor tree, or whatever tree you added, completely filled in for you, which is really nice. And then as you buy stuff, you click the edit pencil, click to edit, and you can click this purchase button down at the bottom, and then it'll automatically detract the XP you have. And down here, you can see how much you have available, which is also nice. We can see, again, it automatically subtracted from our XP. And in our XP history, we can see that it lists that we purchased the talent Intimidating. Let's also, real quick, let's buy Plausible Deniability for another 5 XP. This has some automation stuff applied here in the qualities. So qualities is how you add your own automation to items and talents. But what this automation does is this automatically removes any singular setback from coercion or deception. You can also add talent pyramids if you're in Genesys, and those will look like this. And as you fill this out, it'll start to fill down. You can click to search for talents like, let's say, acceptable, purchase. Let's pretend we have XP for this. And now this automatically fills in. We can also down here fill in a blank talent, and we can say, let's say something lame like too cool for school. And what we can do is we can click add quality, and then we can do an armor quality and adding soak, defense, or encumbrance automatically to our character sheet. Or we can change any attribute such as your soak, your wounds threshold, defense, money, XP. You can change your characteristics, making the value go up or down. You can add boost die, remove setback, add upgrades, or adding advantage to any specific skill like your athletics, brawn, charm, coercion. You can add weapon attributes, such as like if this was on a weapon, you could add damage because of like a modification to the weapon. And then you can also have one that's just text only if you wanted with a description. So like, let's say you have a weapon that has vicious, you could type in vicious 1 and then have the description. And then when you hover over it, when you use the weapon, it would show you the description and tell you what vicious does. So for this too cool for school, let's say that it's going to give 4 boost die to any time that you roll cool. We'll just give it a name so we know what we're doing. Create. So now if we scroll up, we'll now see those boost die are automatically automated onto cool. And if we hover over this little eye, we can see that some of those automation changes come from cool for school. One other thing to note is notice how our encumbrance automatically went up when we added the weapon with encumbrance attached. Again, automation is very, 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 very helpful. The last kind of talent tree that you can add is a list. And so this is just going to be like if you want to have all of your talents in a list or anything that maybe doesn't fit into a talent pyramid or a talent tree. For me, I'll throw my species abilities here in my talent list. But what's really neat is once you get all the talents and stuff that you have, you can go to summary and you can see all of the different talents that you have purchased, and you can group them by not only activation type, but also by their source, which is just very nifty. Armor, once again, we can look for armor, and let's say we want this Mountaineer armor. And let's say the GM says that narratively we can just start the game with it because he's very kind. So I add that in. It has Soak 1, Defense 1. If I scroll up, I should see I have 1 defense in melee and ranged. The additional melee defense coming from the Vibro Sword automation, and then my Soak is up +1 from the armor I just got. Another cool thing is if you buy the talent for force rating, it'll either add it automatically or you can do it custom by adding qualities to increase your force rating by 1 through the talent. Next, let's look at equipment and gear. Let's say we want to buy stim packs. You just search stim packs, buy, and you can choose how many you want to buy. So let's purchase 3 for 75. Okay, and then there's a section here for any character background or motivation details you want to add in. Then we have a section where this is where your obligation, duty, or morality will show up. You'll generally only have 1, maybe 2 if you're doing like morality and obligation or something. Obligation and duty are exactly the same besides the name as far as the way these are set up. So you'll just name this whatever your obligation or duty is, duty's down there. And then you can describe like gambling addiction in however much detail you want or the GM requires. Again, ignore my spelling. Next up is morality. If you have morality here, you can type in your emotional strength, emotional weakness. You can kind of give a description to each one. You can track your session conflict down here, as well as the value of your morality, how close or far away from the light side or the dark side you are. The triggered button, as of this recording, doesn't really do anything yet. However, there's something really cool I want to show you. But before we do, real quick, you can see down here we have notes for that everybody can see, or private notes that I believe only you can see. And you can also see your credits history down here. So the cool obligation and morality and duty thing that I want to show you is really for more obligation or duty is let's click this little pencil up here. We're going to go to add quality. We're going to create a custom quality, go to attribute, click next, and we're going to call this obligation triggered. So then we're going to go to strain threshold value -1, save. And again, for some of these changes, when you do changes, you might have to refresh the page. But now we can see that our strain threshold is automatically lowered by 1 whenever we check mark that obligation is triggered. And if obligation is not triggered that session, then you can just uncheck mark it and your strain goes back up. And if this was duty, what you would do is you would just go to your wounds threshold and do +1, and you'd call it duty triggered. And again, because we made some change to it at the moment, it's looking like I'll need to refresh my page. The wound threshold is up. And that's everything you need to make a character. But now what do you do with your character sheet? I'm glad you asked. It's time to set up our game table, GMs. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to this games tab. We're gonna click new game. You can name the game title whatever you want. I'm really bad at coming up with creative names on the fly, so I'm just gonna call it video test. The game theme is Force and Destiny. We want to change the dice to Star Wars dice, create game. Okay, and from here we have our game table. GMs, what you'll want to do is you want to click this green button up above to copy the link, send that link to your player characters. What your player characters will do is they'll click that link, it'll bring them to this table, and they should see a button somewhere along the top that says join table. Once they click that, they can add their characters by clicking the blue character button. We're going to click the one that we just did, and we are not going to clone and add. We're going to add for any PCs. I feel like you always want to add those PCs directly to the table. So we're going to do add, and I'll explain what clone and adding does in just a little bit. So from here, we can click on our character sheet, and we have all of this information now right here, which is super nice. While you're at the game table, you also have access to the combat tab, which this will just have everything that you need access to in combat, from your wounds, strain, defense information, soak, your force rating, and whether you have anything committed or not. You can mark yourself disoriented, prone, staggered, or immobilized. You can sort your talents alphabetically by activation type or by source. And right here, you can roll critical injuries. So let's say you want to roll critical injury, and let's say that weapon had vicious 3. What we can do is we can click 1, 2, 3, and roll. And we see we got temporarily lame. That's awful. Okay. Let's say in the following NPC turns, I got hit with another critical injury, but thankfully this one doesn't have vicious. However, we're going to roll crit, and we can see that the critical injury that we already have is already being applied. So we don't need to click +10 for our existing critical injury. It automatically takes that into effect. So you only need to click +10 or -10 if there's something like vicious or a talent that'll reduce your critical injury. So we'll click roll, and it'll automatically add with that +10. and we can see that it rolled off balance. If we go back to our character sheet here though, what we can also do is we can edit and you can mark a critical injury as healed. So this is if you still want to see the critical injuries that you've had before, or if one has maybe more of a permanent effect, but it's not currently counting as a critical injury, you can mark it as healed, and that way the automation for roll crit won't consider it in the roll, but you can still see it. One really cool feature I want to show that's not available unless you're in the game table is for weapons. You can click these 3 dots, drop the weapon to table if you drop the weapon, and then somebody else can claim the weapon. This could be really, really nifty if you just want to like give a blaster pistol to somebody else at the party. You drop your blaster pistol to the table and then that party member can just take it up and it'll automatically get added to their character sheet and removed from your character sheet. GMs, only you have access to this red Adversaries button though. When you click Adversaries, you can either add from your library or you can import from Genesys Ref or Stugoff. Now, like I said, there are some Patreon features. If you are a Patreon member, you have access to more imports per month. If you're on the free tier, you get 6 characters imported per month. If you're on higher tiers, you have access to a range of different amounts depending on your Patreon tier. So for now, I'm going to add from my library. Let's say characters, enemies, empire, stormtrooper. And for enemies, I want to clone and add, and here's why. But first, let's change the minion count. Clone. If I was to not clone and add, and I just did the add button, if I change the wounds, this will change the wounds of the stormtrooper in my library. So then if I go to add another stormtrooper, it'll get added in with whatever wounds this has. So what I want to do is I want to clone and add enemies. So that way I have the template there and I can always import them fresh into the table as a new stormtrooper group arrives or as a new generic enemy arrives, like a street thug or something. Even with other major characters like Darth Vader, maybe you want to have access to Darth Vader in a different game without having to reset all of your stats. With player characters, most of the time they don't get used in more than one campaign, so you can just add them directly to the table. So when you add an adversary, you should see this options. You have show, which if you click this, the players can then see the stormtrooper, or hidden, and the players are unaware of the stormtrooper. If they're shown, you can choose to only show the image. You can choose to show the image and the name, or you can choose to show the full stats to the players. And then for stuff like minion groups, as they gain wounds, you can see that the minion count is automatically being reduced. And you have that over here in the UI, which is just wonderful. And when characters are knocked out and exceed their strength threshold, their strain or their wounds bars will break up like this. Again, another nice visual feature. And then when your character is done or the encounter is over, you can click these 3 dots and you can remove character. Okay, so let's look at the encounters tab next. So with the encounters tab, what you can do is you can pre-create your encounters before your game starts. So let's say you have the players fighting 3 minion groups of stormtroopers and a stormtrooper sergeant. You can create a new encounter, click create new encounter at the bottom, and you can name this Stormtrooper Squad. You can tell I've done that before. Create, click on it, add adversary. I'm going to add from my library, but again, you can import from Stugoff if you so desire. And you can even use an adversary creator wizard, which, you know what, let's add one of those at the end. So first, let's add from library, again, characters. And I didn't mention this before, these are all the characters that I've created or imported. One of the Patreon features is also that you can have nested folders. So as a free tier, you get 1 level of folders available. However, if you're a Patreon supporter, then you can have folders inside of folders inside of folders, which can help a lot with organization. So characters, enemies, empire, I'm going to say a stormtrooper and a stormtrooper sergeant, clone and add 2. I'm going to increase the minion count. And what I can do here is I can click this clone button up here to add 3 different groups. And let's say I clicked 1 too many, you can click the trash can to remove them back down. And then when you clone items, you can choose to add them specifically to your library. So maybe you do want to keep track of Darth Vader specifically for that campaign, then you can add that version to the library and that'll get added. And when you change his stats, they'll stay saved for when you remove him from the game table versus re-adding him later when he maybe later shows up in the campaign. You just need to keep track of which Darth Vader you're adding back in later. But for now, let's clone those 4. And we can now see that all these are here. And I actually have not tried the adversary creator yet, so let's give that a shot. Let's call him Imperial Officer, and we'll also make him a rival. He's gonna have more of a diplomat role, and we can kind of set his strength. So I don't think like this guy is gonna be necessarily super strong. I'm imagining that, you know, he'll be kind of high presence, high intellect, maybe higher willpower, and lower agility brawn. I'm imagining he's human, right? So 2's the basic stats. And from here we can create. And if we go to add an adversary and we go back to the top of the library, we can now see this Imperial officer that we created. So let's clone and add him. And then later you can go in, same way we did the PCs, you can go in and add a picture if you so desire by using a URL from Google or something. And then when the players are ready to fight the Stormtroopers and they get to that point in the story, you can go over to encounters, click your Stormtrooper squad, click activate encounter, encounter activated, and then you can see that all of the adversaries are added directly to the game table. So let's show all of these baddies. When you are playing as the PCs or as the NPCs, what you can do is you can scroll down. I'm going to pick my weapon back up. If you click the dice roll on the weapon itself, you can then choose which enemy you want to roll. And as you can see, I can see all their pictures, but I can't see their names. I'm going to click name, and now you can see if I hover over him, I can see Stormtrooper 3. So I'm going to click him, and let's say I'm in medium range. Actually, no, it's a vibro sword. Engaged range. Build pool. You can see it automatically sets the difficulty for me. If the Stormtrooper had any melee defense, that would automatically get shown up here on its own automatically, which is, again, very nice. And as you can see here, it'll tell me my final damage. It'll tell me if I have enough for a crit, as well as it'll show me the qualities of the weapons. If I were to like to come over and click over them, I can see what each of them do. Once again, very helpful. And same thing for you GMs. Let's say you're playing as a Stormtrooper and you want to shoot at the PCs. You can also do that. So let's say you're at medium range. You can see that the PC has 1 range defense, so it's automatically adding that for you. We can roll, and we can see that, okay, we failed, 0 damage. We rolled 3 advantages, but then we can figure out what to do narratively with those 3 advantages. Okay, next we have the map editor. So the map editor is a premium feature for Patreon because of the cost that it requires of them to maintain this feature. I'm not going to get super in depth on the map features today. However, what you can do is you can add player character tokens, you can add map images, you can draw. It's kind of like a big whiteboard that you can put images on, as well as you can add player characters directly to the game table. And as you click on them, you can see that it pulls up a little combat character sheet information for you. You can add and subtract wounds and strain right in the moment. You can commit force die, uncommit force die. You can look at your skills, your weapons, your talents, your crits, all from the map editor, which is incredibly helpful. If you decide to check out RPG Sessions, you can play around with the map. It's not all that complicated, but I don't have time today to show you everything involved with that. So let's go back to the game table and let's look at this last few items that are up here on the top corner. There's a button here. This is to roll for Destiny tokens. So every player, if you're playing Star Wars, will roll these. Otherwise, if you are playing Genesys, you'll have 1 token per player at the table, and then one of those will be dark side for the GM. In the settings, this is where you can apply Patreon tokens directly to the table over here. And that way, everybody at the table will get access to those Patreon features within the game table. You can change the name of the campaign, you can change the theme, the dice, the language, any settings. You can even change the way that the Destiny tokens look. You can change what crit tables you're using for just Star Wars or for Genesys. And if you're done with the game, you can choose to archive the game. So that way it's hidden from your games tab if you go back to your games tab. So for now, I didn't really make any changes. I'm gonna just click go back. And then last but not least, we have this little toolbox up here for the GMs. And right now there is an ability to award group XP. So at the end of your sessions, GMs, you can come over here and say, yeah, every player for today's session can have 10 XP, and you can call it, you know, session 1 or whatever session it is. So that way players can see it, and then players at the bottom of their character sheets can go down to the XP history and see that they received XP for session 1 and have it available in their available XP. We were at -5, now we're at 5. RPG Sessions is constantly updating this website. Like, I made a video similar to this about a year ago, and it's already pretty out of date because of just how much that they've been updating and fixing, and all these quality of life updates that they've added since last time, that I don't think it'd be fair to like have a video without some of those, such as importing stuff directly from a data table is so nice. No more just typing everything out for 20 minutes. It's right there, easy at your fingertips. if you go back to just the RPGSessions.com before you sign in, you can scroll down and you can see how to become a Patreon supporter, as well as all the different features that are available to specifically Patreon. So you have all the free features, and then you have just a handful of really nice quality of life features, and then the map. And that's pretty much everything that's for Patreon. But they have tiers that are $1, $2, $5, and $10. I've spent my fair share of time on this site as a free member, and I've never had any complaints or issues with it. I've also spent some time as a supporter, mainly on the Adventurer tier, which is $5 a month, for just some of those extra quality of life bonuses, pretty much more imports than I could ever want to use, the ability to access the nested folders that I showed you, as well as the map editor. There are a couple things that I didn't touch on today, such as like vehicles. However, a lot of the vehicle sheets work very similarly to player character sheets. But really, that's an overview for how to at least get started with RPGSessions.com. I hope this video was super helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to give RPG Sessions a try, you can sign up for free today at RPGSessions.com. I'll have a link down in the description below. This video was sponsored by them. That said, everything I shared here was my own thoughts and my own opinions. They weren't telling me what I can or can't say or anything like that. I really do just love this virtual tabletop, and I'm happy to be able to share it with you guys. If you want to see more Star Wars RPG content, blast the like button, hit subscribe so you don't miss anything. We have our brand new actual play, The Unnaturals. Go check it out. It's going to be super fun. I hope you enjoy that too. Once again, a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters. You all are so helpful, and you guys are a huge reason of why this channel is able to do what it does. Thank you so much. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter and checking out some of those benefits, you can find that at patreon.com/thetabletopempire. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, and as always, may the Force be with you.